Hello and welcome to another movie review. This is Obscure Reference. I'm Patrick. Person below me is Austin.
Hello.
We're here to talk about Wonka. Yay! The newest Timothée Chalamet blockbuster is out. It's not Dune Part
Musical, in
2.
fact.
Musical, in fact, yeah. And much as I would have loved Dune Part 2 to come out first, we got Wonka, which, some might say, well, who knows? We'll get to it. So yeah, we both saw this yesterday, so we're both fresh off of this. We both have this fresh in our minds. Austin, you've already shared some of your thoughts on the Twitter webs. What did you think of it?
Yes. This was the most average movie I've ever seen. Like, there's nothing harmful about this movie. I enjoyed my time. I think that the absolute best part of this was the world. The filmmakers clearly had so much fun with the world that they were in. And so that kept me enjoying it throughout the whole thing. Story was, pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of crazy stuff in it. The villains didn't really matter. um, the acting for the most part, solid. Timothy Chalamet, underwhelming for me, like I thought he would be. And just kind of like, I think he's got a passable performance, but when you compare it to the other versions, that's where it really kind of is underwhelming. And I thought the music was fun, good, but not particularly memorable other than, the iconic Wonka song, but this movie doesn't really get points for that. So yeah, I think for the most part, like, the visuals and the fun that they clearly had with like taking Wonka's chocolates to the next level with the powers and all that, um, was just a lot of fun to watch, and it was a otherwise not harmful movie that I enjoyed seeing, but just probably won't see again.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. I quite like this movie, quite a bit, honestly. The guy who directed this, Paul King, he's done the Paddington movies, so I kind of had an idea of what to expect. And this felt like another Paddington movie, but with Wonka vibes. I don't think it lives up to the standards that I have after seeing Paddington 2, but I still had a really good time with this movie. I think I agree with you on a lot of your points. Honestly, I think Timothy Chalamet's performance is probably the weakest, but like I think it's pretty good, honestly. Um, that leads into one of my larger problems, which I'll get to in a minute. I think, like you said, the world is fun. It's just fun to be in this movie. None of the musical numbers really resonated with me a whole lot, outside of the Oompa Loompa and, the pure imagination. But like
What
you
about
said,
Scrub, Scrub, Scrub?
well, that's the thing. I was talking to my friend after we walked out of the movie last night. I'm like, I had fun during the musical numbers, but I'm not going to remember any of them because at that moment I didn't. But I was listening to the soundtrack earlier this morning. I'm like, no, these are bops. They're not gonna go on my like musical number playlist, but like they're bops. Um,
Yeah, I think they're all good. Like, there was
hmm
never one that was bad. There
Yeah,
just wasn't one that, like, there wasn't the iconic one
there
that
wasn't.
you're gonna like
Yeah,
remember forever.
and that's exactly what my friend said. He's like, I was waiting for that breakout song that I was gonna be listening to on Spotify for like the next month, and that just never happened. Um, which isn't to say like the choreography, the cinematography of every musical number was just a blast. This movie
Oh
had
yeah.
a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun being in this world. I think the side characters maybe could have used a little bit more shine, but like they were also a joy just to spend time with. I think Abacus being an accountant is just really fun writing, and
Yeah.
that's just a lot of this movie. It's just fun. Like, yeah, I don't know. There's really no other way for me to put this other than I had a lot of fun, and the callbacks to the Gene Wilder Wonka, resonated with me. Like especially when Wonka is reuniting Noodle with her mom and Hugh Martin sneaks up on him and he says, "A good deed in a weary world," and that's one of my favorite lines from the original movie. And if I wasn't already crying at that moment, I might have teared up there for sure. Um, and that's not something I expected from a Wonka movie. Like the original doesn't make me cry, but Paddington 2 does, and this almost hits that level. But um, yeah, I think my larger problems is that as much as it tries to connect itself to the Gene Wilder version of Willy Wonka, I think there's some disconnects a little bit with how Wonka acts in this movie versus how he acts when he's Gene Wilder. He's a little bit more cynical. Like when a kid's about to like do something stupid and get sucked up a chocolate chute, he's like, "No, please don't." Like he's very he doesn't care about the kids, and if they're gonna talk shit, they're gonna get shot. Like that's his attitude, kind of. Here, it's like, well, no, we gotta help everyone. We don't steal. We don't do all this stuff, which is so close to being what Gene Wilder was as Wonka, but it kind of misses the mark a little bit. So I've tried to view Timothy Chalamet's rendition of Wonka a little bit as a different character, but it's so hard to do because you have the same Oompa Loompa, you have the same songs, like so I got to give it a little bit negative points for that, but like other than that, yeah, this was a lot of fun. I had a really good time with this movie.
Hmm. This one didn't like you were talking about the scenes with Noodle at the end.
Hmm.
I think that everything was like because everything was, somewhere between decent and good, it didn't put together enough to make me feel emotionally invested in that moment.
Hmm.
Like I'm very much not someone who, has an issue crying in those moments, but this one just
Yeah.
didn't really get me there.
Hmm.
Um in a way that others have just because I didn't like, even if it was like one of the characters that I felt like really attached to, like I think Noodle as a character is good,
Hmm.
but I'm not like super invested in her performance. I think it was somewhat subdued but good.
Hmm.
um so yeah, it didn't reach the point to pique me emotionally on that one.
Yeah. And that wasn't the scene that got me. It was the scene that we saw in all the trailers where Wonka's sitting there and he sees his mom in the crowd. It's like I wish we didn't see that in trailers because that might have hit me a little bit harder. But it still hit me. That was a moment that got me for sure.
That was one of my issues that I had with Hugh Grant in this movie was like
Mm.
they basically showed
Oh
all
my
of the
God.
important stuff of
Yeah.
Hugh Grant in the trailers.
Yep.
Like beyond that, he doesn't really add much to this movie. I mean, he saves him in the end, so they don't show that
Hmm.
part. But like
Well.
all of the fun bits from Hugh Grant,
Hmm.
all of the jokes and everything are like basically in the trailer.
Yeah, I mean, even when he does, like, you see him, like, in the trailers, like, you do see that bit where he goes down to the chocolate vault and he has that wingsuit on. Like, you do see that in the trailers, and it's like, well, every Hugh Grant was in the trailer. Like, I wish a lot of the
Yeah,
funnier jokes were also in the trailer. And granted, there were still some golden nuggets here and there, but like, I don't know, that bummed me out for sure. I wish
I
we should be better about this by now.
Yeah, I really like this movie didn't like the jokes didn't land for me. I mean, some
Mm,
of them we had already heard,
yeah,
so, that's part of it.
right.
But also, I don't know, I'm probably just not the person that the jokes are for. Like obviously
Mm,
this is a kids movie.
yeah, for sure.
Like it's a pretty uncomplicated movie. There's very bad guys and very good guys.
Hmm.
And you know, it plays out as you'd expect.
Yep.
But I maybe chuckled once, like a really soft chuckle.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I was like, it's I'm just having fun with it, but I'm not like
Hmm.
laughing at any of these things. Like the jokes with like the Yeti sweat and all of that, like which are clearly a gag, but it just
Yeah.
never got me there.
That's just like, yeah, that's just a fun little bit of the world building that I like about this movie. It's just, a lot of it is just fun, and there's some jokes that yeah, got a chuckle out of me. I think a lot of the jokes we saw in the trailers might have made me laugh in the movie, but I'd seen them 50
I
million
think Hugh
times.
Grant would have been so much better if he just like
Hmm.
wasn't in the trailers as much,
Yeah,
or was in the movie more. I don't know.
he should have been in the movie a little bit more. That's something I'm kind of been wrestling with, but I do think that the moments he's in, he does sell, and you can tell he's having fun with it, even though, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, anyway, um, but yeah, I don't know. There was some jokes that got a chuckle on me. There was some bits where they set it up. I'm like, yeah, okay, this isn't gonna land, and then it did land. Like every time they said, oh, he's gonna have an accident, and the one guy's like, the one in which he dies. Like that got me a couple of times. They brought it back maybe a little bit too much, but um, and then there was another. Oh, the guy, the comedian who could talk like he was underwater. Like that didn't work for me at first, but there were moments where he would just say something and he wasn't even on screen. You could hear him saying something like he's underwater, and that got a laugh out of me. Um, so yeah, there is some bits that were good. I don't think it all works super great for me, but at the same time, it's like not a bad joke. It's just maybe not aimed at me specifically, but a lot of it is like Simpsons level, like, oh, we're having fun with this. We know this is ridiculous, but we're playing into it. Um,
Yeah, I think the interesting part of, and so I'm sure someone, or maybe they won't, but someone
mhm,
could totally do a like a video just on this on YouTube about the failure of the advertising of this movie.
mhm,
I mean, we had this conversation, like we watched two trailers, reacted to two trailers not knowing this was a musical. Then we had a conversation about that, so I at least knew going into it. And then we had like two people who show up in a large amount in the advertising are Mr. Bean and Hugh Grant, and then their actual like contributions to the movie are like minimal.
Yeah,
Like they really wanted to sell the faces of characters who weren't that relevant.
yeah.
So like it really felt like this movie didn't advertise itself well.
No, I think they showed a little bit too much of their jokes, but I think that's part of the problem with American moviegoers is they kind of need to do that to get butts in seats. Like no one's gonna go see, the adults aren't gonna go see a movie with starring Timothy Chalamet. They like Hugh Martin, they like Rowan Atkinson, they like Olivia Colman, and you're not gonna get butts in seats with any of the other names in this movie, unfortunately. So I think that's a
I
big
just
part of it.
Yeah, I mean, this keeps coming up for us at this point, but I just have a
Mm-hmm.
problem with what is to me just a lie. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not a direct lie, but
It's
you're
withholding information,
you're
kind of.
bending the truth of what it
Mm-hmm.
is. And I think the musical part of it is worse, like the fact that that wasn't like more
Oh, I hate
explicit.
that. Yeah.
Like cuz you're again, like even if say like, this is like John Wick, which it's not, but I will just
Mm-hmm.
use John Wick because it's such an obvious example. Like the trailers for that movie, not that interesting. Don't like give you the breadth of what that movie is. But then people get to the movie and you get all of this buzz of like, holy shit,
Yeah.
like this is an incredible movie. Now, if you do the reverse of that here, right? Wonka
Mm-hmm.
is like, look at all of these people and these things that are in this. Then they go into the movie and they're let down by those things not being there and it being an entirely different kind of movie. Like they're going to have a much worse opinion. And I think that it undersells how important like word of mouth is to,
Mm-hmm.
and not literally word of mouth because it's on the internet now, but
Yeah.
like internet talk about movies is. And if people go, well, I was kind of let down, it was okay, like
Mm-hmm.
you're just going to die on the internet after a day. Like that's just the reality of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember in the lead up to this, like, I'm someone who's fairly well in touch. I think we all are really on this channel that we're all fairly well in touch of what's happening and what a movie is going to be about. Like I could have told you the Mean Girls movie was going to be a musical and the New Color Purple was going to be a musical. We got that maybe not from their promotional material, but like just from other,
The
tertiary
color purple
knowledge.
definitely was for sure the
Yeah,
trailer.
that's
Yeah,
true. That's true. But they're not heavily promoting it as, hey, it's the new musical event of the winter, Like they're not, up in front about it. Whereas Mean Girls, some of their trailers have kind of promoted it. But like I just knew they were making a movie based on the musical, so I just kind of knew that going into it. This I had no idea was a musical until about maybe 3 weeks ago. And that's baffling because I've been looking forward to this movie for like months. So it's kind of crazy that they didn't think to promote that. I know people aren't super fond of musicals, like the general public isn't. So I can kind of understand that, but like to just
the
hide it
movie
straight
world
up,
seems to be though, because like there's so many of them coming out right now.
I know, and it's just bizarre because like I don't know, there have been other musicals that do well, like The Greatest Showman had legs, like La La Land had legs, like. This is gonna do well at the box office, and I think it might have been able to do a little bit better if they promoted it the way they should have. But that's a whole different sort of discussion. I don't think that's any fault of the movie
Sure.
itself. But oh
Certainly not the creators or the director or any of
no,
those guys.
yeah, I will add to on the musical stuff. Like I want to get away from like auto tuning the singers. I don't know if you heard it. It sounded a little too synthetic every time they were singing. It's like,
My issue was that I don't think Timothy Chalamet can sing that well.
mm, yeah,
Like you'd have to cast someone else. I think that's the issue.
I'm
Because I
not.
agree, it didn't like it kind of took like because they auto tuned it so much, it took away a lot of any of like the nuance and anything he could do if he could do anything like in terms of flair with
Mm,
his singing. But I
mm,
also think they had to make up for the fact that he's just not a great singer.
yeah, I mean that could certainly be. He strikes me as someone who can sing though. I don't know why.
Maybe. I mean, I haven't heard him sing anything else, so I can't
Right,
say that
that's just it,
for a
right?
matter of fact.
I will say though, there was a moment in pure imagination when that starts up. Oh, I just want to give a shout out to that too. Like they were teasing like the first few notes of that song the entire movie, and then he finally
Yeah.
starts singing it. I'm like, that was good. Anyway, but like he has a moment where he's watching Noodle hug her mom, and his voice just like breaks, and you see him like tearing up a little bit. I was like, oh, good job, Timothy. I didn't. I know he's a good actor, but like, I don't know.
That
Every musical number felt like super produced. So like, see something like that where it
yeah.
showed some character. I'm like, okay, good, yeah, that was good.
I really thought that Timothy's best scene in the entire movie was uh the scene in the square when they win in the end and they have the
Mm,
moment with Noodle before she sees her mom.
yeah,
I thought that was his best moment in the entire movie.
I think so. Yeah.
Um, and it continued after that and was good in other ways. But if that would have been the like finale of the movie, I might have felt a little bit better about Timothy's performance.
Mm-hmm.
But I also am glad that we got that last scene because it was fun to see him
Yeah,
transform the castle. Like that was a lot of fun to watch.
that was a lot of good
So
payoff. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
yeah, I think I he definitely has moments, but I don't think he sells it all the way. And
Mm, mm-hmm.
I actually, in my mind, was never really comparing him to Gene Wilder or to Johnny Depp for that matter. I just kind of took him as he was,
Yeah.
and like you have to compare him because of the same character. But I mean, like not that they're like he's a young version of either of them.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that he doesn't like there's a level. So both Gene Wilder and Johnny Depp, I think we can agree as people are like slightly crazy,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you can catch that in their performances. Whereas I think Timothy Chalamet is just like a white guy, and like I think he is a
Mm-hmm.
kid who grew up and had a good life and whatever,
Yeah.
and now he's an actor and he's got skill, but he's not like one of the best ever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so his highs and his lows don't go as high or low in terms of like emotion, not in terms of ability.
Yeah.
Um, and so it just doesn't hit in the same way.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. When all the trailers were first dropping, everyone was kind of critical, us included, that he didn't seem goofy, he didn't seem wonky enough, pun intended. Um, and I think a lot of that holds true. I think there's some lines where he's trying to be like Gene Wilder or, lesser extent Johnny Depp, because his version of Wonka is so very different than what this is.
Very.
Um, but you see moments where he's like, what is it? Listen down and quiet up. No, stop that reverse. And it's little lines like that where it's like he's trying, and I don't think he hits those same like notes. I think there was one there where I was like, oh, okay, there's a little bit of that craziness there where he's talking about, they're at the zoo and he opens the tiger door and he's like, no, no animals ever bit me, but they did get a nibble out of me. He has that smile and he's just, you see the look in his eyes. I was like, okay, that
Mm-hmm.
was actually pretty good. All right. But yeah, I think this Wonka is ultimately different enough from Gene Wilder where it's like I ultimately have to stop comparing them, even though the movie wants me to. It feels like.
Sure. That scene with the giraffe was like one of my favorite scenes in the movie too.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was
It's really
so
good.
wholesome
Mm-hmm.
with that giraffe in a way that it's crazy because that giraffe looked really good for
Yeah.
like being not a real giraffe,
Mm-hmm.
and they were able to give it emotion so well. I
Mm-hmm.
was kind of surprised, uh, but great scene,
Yeah.
loved it. And
Yeah.
then the other piece of like I guess this is more like set design really that really blew me away was when they did the when he gave the first piece of chocolate to Noodle and it looked like
Oh.
a cloud with a
Mm-hmm.
lightning bolt on it and she actually bit into it and it like held together and actually looked like chocolate. I was like baffled at their
Mm-hmm.
because like it doesn't look like chocolate at all, but they were able to make the visual effect of it like so good that it
Mm-hmm.
just looks like you would expect.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I was really expecting the like lightning bolt to fall off or something because it looked like it was so thinly connected.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, wow, that's I mean, there was so much of all of that, right? Like there was
Oh yeah.
clearly a ton of all of the sets had so much practical um effect in it. Like
Mm-hmm.
they clearly built a ton of these sets.
Yeah.
that everything looked so good. Like
Mm-hmm.
even like the one that I really noticed it like that made me think about it the most was when they were going into the secret lair of the chocolate mafia, and
Mm-hmm.
you we saw like their sign like above them, and then like all of the accents around like pipes and stuff that would have their names and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff. I was like,
yeah, yeah.
there's so much detail in all
Oh.
of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like they really put it out there. And I don't know, trying is there a award for set design? Because if there is, this is a
Ooh,
contender, if not a winner,
I'd
for
have to look
sure.
that up. I want to say there is. Um, yeah, I'd have to look that up. I don't know for sure, but that sounds like something that you should be awarded for. Because I agree. I think this is right up there with Barbie for me. I think this is a really well designed set. I think there's a lot of practicality to it, like you said. I there was a bit that they didn't, place it in the center of the screen, but it's there where like the bell tower starts going off, and you just see these two people come out from the bell tower, and one of them just bends over, and the other has a pen. And he just hits him, and that's the bell sound. And it's just like little stuff like that you didn't need to put in there, but it's funny and it adds the goofiness of this world, and it's just fun. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what I loved about this movie. It's just the atmosphere
Yeah.
and the vibes were there. I do want to touch on the CG giraffe because, like, you're right, it looked really good. It struck me as odd because the dog, when we first see the dog, did not look super great. There were moments where I'm like, that's clearly a CG dog. Um, but that was the scene with the giraffe where, like, up until that moment, I'm like, okay, I'm willing to give this a benefit of the doubt because, like, I like this director. But that was the scene where I'm like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing here. I'm turning around on this movie. I'm just having fun. That was a because you have that giraffe scene, you go right into that musical number where like they're just running around and dancing at the zoo at night, and they get the balloons and stuff, and it's just like I want to say magical. Yeah, I'll say magical. I had a lot of that was my turning point for the movie for sure.
I was concerned at first that this was gonna get too like eat the rich, and then
Mm,
I was thankful in that sense that it was a less complicated movie,
yeah.
because there were vibes early on where I was like, I don't know if I want that out of a Wonka movie.
No, yeah, that wouldn't fit well. I don't think. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't go that route. I will say though, the Chocolate Cartel, they were a lot of fun. Everything they
Mm-hmm.
like, all their interactions, Keegan Michael Key, like being bought off with chocolate, having that giant ass chocolate loaded on his tiny car. It's just like stupid, fun little shit like that. That just got me. That whole musical number where they're trying to like seduce him with chocolate. And he joins them in that
Mm-hmm.
final bow. He's like, "Wait, why am I singing?" And then they're like, "How about 18,000 bars of chocolate?" And he's like, "No, I'm sold."
Oh, deal.
Yeah. So I liked everything with Eagle Michael Key in here. Even if him gaining a lot of weight kind of wore on me towards the end. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
we don't need to watch him getting out of a car for 3 minutes.
No.
But yeah. Oh, also everything with the chocolate monks. They're chanting a Gregorian chants saying like "We like chocolate." Like that
Mm-hmm.
stuff hit for me. But I know that's because I come from a religious background, so like maybe that's more of a touchstone for me. But I had a lot of fun with that. They didn't need to do that.
I thought it was fun. It was also very much reminiscent of the what for the that world from the Marvels, which I can't remember the name of now,
Oh yeah,
where like they
the
just
yeah.
speak in song.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, a little bit of those vibes for sure. Yeah, Rowan Atkinson, criminally underused, great comedic actor, but I don't know what else he would have done with this character. So maybe he was used perfectly. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um, let's
they had to get a little bit of that old religious guilt in there
a little bit.
at the end.
Yeah.
I don't really have much else to say other than when they're in that chocolate vault
hmm
and they almost drown. All I could think about is how awful it would be to um, film that scene, like being covered in I don't. It's
Ugh.
probably not actually chocolate,
No, probably
but
not.
like you could see it sticking to them
Yeah.
like in their hair and all of that. I was like,
Ugh.
dude, that sounds like an awful day of filming, or probably multiple days of filming.
Yeah.
Like just sitting in that all day, getting that all up on you. I was like, ugh.
Yeah. No, because like I noticed too when they're like flying towards the window at the top, like you see their handprints. I'm like, so they're actually covered in that. Oh, that's gross. Okay.
The funny thing that I thought too is I don't know if you ever see the movie again, you might notice it, but
hmm
the level of water that they were in or whatever the liquid was didn't
Yeah.
raise up. but the way that they made it look like everything was raising was around them in the background. They made the level roll up. So like the actual
Oh,
visual effect in the background
uh-huh.
looked like it went up, and that's how they got the effect of like the level
Interesting.
rising without them actually rising.
That's clever. Because I was looking at it, I wouldn't have, it fooled me for sure, but I saw the chocolate kind of rise above the grate that they were standing on. But like, yeah, that's clever. I'm gonna have to look for that. I'm sure, I don't know if I'll see this in a theater again, but like, I'm probably gonna own it at some point, so I'll keep an eye out for that. Oh, there was something else. Oh, I forgot it. Oh, that's what it was. In Wonka's backstory, I want to give a little quick shout out to that too, that where they would, just get enough cacao beans to make one chocolate bar a year. I'm like, who do we know only got one chocolate bar a year? So Charlie, it's Charlie. It's Charlie. He only got one Wonka bar a year, and except for when the movie happens and he gets like three, and that's how he gets a golden ticket. But whatever. Um, so it was a fun
I
little
do
connection.
I do think there's a part of all of that that they missed where they like, they very clearly made this Germanic town like um very much run by a small number of very rich people.
Yeah,
But then, all of the themes of the previous two movies are about how Wonka lets in these poor people that live around, and well, I guess in terms of Charlie rather
yeah.
than
Everyone
like
else, yeah.
the supporting kids.
Hmm.
Um, and so there was a little bit of like, how would this Wonka act like he does in those ones when he comes from like a very clearly poor and um, saddled background, where I was like, I don't know if those really add up, but I'm not gonna like think about it too hard.
Yeah, I had that same kind of thing where I'm like, how would he interact? And then we get a little bit, I think, where we see him give those like flying chocolates to the chocolate cartel, and he's like, because like it felt like he didn't have a plan in that moment, because he's like, well, let's make this Wonka chocolate, so at least we're dying in Wonka chocolate. And it's like, did you really have a plan? And then it kind of feels like he did at the end, so that was lines got a little blurred there, but I kind of like that he gave the flying chocolates to the chocolate cartel, fully knowing that they were probably going to eat them. Um, and so it felt a little bit of that fuck around and find out with the other Wonkas, where it's like, well, I told you not to swim in the chocolate river, so this is what happens, or I told you not to eat that gum, but and this is what happens. So you mess around, you find out. So I did like that aspect of it. It was like it felt like that little bit of connective tissue that I was looking for. But yeah, I don't know. I had a fun time with this movie.
For
Fun
sure.
characters, good story. It was just a feel good, fun, fuzzy, warm feeling movie. Don't know if I'll see it again, but I do highly recommend that if you have, especially if you have kids, go see this movie. I think this is one that's.
Definitely the kind of
Mm-hmm,
movie that like you'll spend your money and not feel like you wasted it,
mm-hmm.
knowing given that you know what you're going into.
Yes, yeah. If you have a fondness for the Gene Wilder one, could definitely see this. It's one of those movies I think where you should take your kids to it, but I think you can have fun too as an adult. Yeah, no, I had a good time with this movie for sure. Go see it, and then also see Godzilla minus one right after. Great, tonal dissonance there. So yeah, I think this about covers our review for the Paul King's Wonka. Thank you for tuning in. What did you think of the movie? Did you like Johnny Depp better? Did you like Gene Wilder better? Doesn't matter. Leave your thoughts in the
Who has the
comments
best
below.
haircut?
Ooh,
Definitely Timothy. It's not
I was
close.
gonna say Johnny Depp, but
Whoa, with the weird bowl cut?
with the weird bowl cut. Eh, sorry, that movie is just baffling to me. Anyway, actually, we didn't see Christopher Lee as his dentist father. That's fucked up. Anyway, um, what did you think of this movie? Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like what we do here, leave a like, leave a subscribe, hit the bell so that you know when we have a new video or we're going live. Follow us on our socials. We stream every Monday and Thursday with the occasional bonus stream here and there. And yeah, so that's all we got. I'm Patrick. That's Austin. We're Obscure Reference. You've been awesome. We'll see you later.